What is up, maniacs? Welcome to WMMA Mania. WMMAnia, excuse me. It just all flows together. This is episode 51. It is Tuesday, February 28th, the final day of the month here in 2023 for February. How are we doing? Good to see you. I am your host, as always, Drake Riggs, here to bring you the latest and greatest in the world of mixed martial arts when it comes to the ladies specifically. We have a pretty solid lineup here for you once again today. Much shorter than last week as we were compensating, making up for some lost time. But we will be recapping three events from the past weekend. Most specifically, one over some others, but that is all right. We'll still touch on some things. We have some great, very exciting fight announcements to get into that took place over the past week, of course. And then we'll be previewing UFC 285, which features some high-stakes flyweight action, obviously, as you can tell from our cover here today. So yeah, that is about all we got going on. Feel free to leave your questions, comments, concerns in the chat box, or even in the comments if you're watching this on replay. We'll try to get to them in a timely manner, as always. So yeah, hello everybody. How are you doing? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you like the content at WMMAnia.com. We're always providing things on the daily. And if you like the show, you can hit the notification bell so you don't miss a gosh darn thing when we're going live like we are right now. Or again, if you're watching from the future as we're speaking in this moment here, you can still go back and like. It really helps us out a whole bunch in terms of getting the spread, I suppose you could say. But the old the algorithm, as a shout out to our buddy, our good friend John Yunko over from the All-Star. So yeah, how are we, everybody? We're getting hot right away, I see. Geez, going right into some things. I don't know how I should organize this. James, not even saying hello. How are you, sir? As he says, you talk about accessibility, but I don't think that's true. One way he spoke to Ariel after UFC 281, I saw a lot of people, a lot of your media buddies getting triggered and angry that what she said about Valentina, as they normally would. So maybe it's a good thing she doesn't speak to Western media, because when she does, MMA media get triggered and angry. When she doesn't, they make up stuff about her mindset and lack of focus. I don't know how many times I got to review myself in these kind of cases, James, but I don't know. I don't even know what to say about this anymore, because I really don't see these kinds of things. So I don't know what you want me to say. And I don't think you could tell me I'm wrong in terms of the accessibility, because I'm sure if these are feelings out there, they could be changed if spoken to. I don't know. And at this point, I don't really care. I would just love to chat with Whaley again, but she's very hard to get a hold of now. Unless you're obviously somebody like Ariel, who has the biggest platform in the sport, so it's not even that fair. But Rain says no clever pun today, because I think this is more important. Check out Protect Your Neck, episode 270. Shout out to Dan Tom, where Dan explains the lack of awareness and understanding of Stop Asian Hate in the media coverage. UFC 261. It is fair to say that Whaley gets unfairly treated for whatever she says because of the media's ignorance of just ignoring Asian hate. I, again, I'm not so sure about that, so I guess I will have to check that out. I mean, undeniably, you guys know me. One of the main reasons I speak to so many Asian fighters, or fighters who don't speak English, mostly Asians, obviously. I speak to Japanese people every single month, is because they clearly do not get the same love and support, even if they are in the UFC, which there's not that many in the UFC. But even if they are American-based fighters, they still don't get talked to as much. And that's not, I don't think, an Asian thing. Not to say that the Asian hate stuff isn't ridiculous, stupid, racist, and that it doesn't exist, because it 100% does, and it drives me insane. But we've talked about this so many times, you guys. For the reoccurring viewers, if you're new here, what I'm talking about is people are just lazy. Media people specifically. I'm not saying anyone specifically, but if you notice, reasons that people don't like to talk to non-English speakers is because they don't speak English, and it's just one small hoop, really. It's nothing to me anymore, and I'm not trying to make myself sound all cool, but it's one more thing to worry about, having a translator, all that kind of thing. And people just don't like to do it for whether it's laziness or whatever reasons. I think that's a big part of it because it's really not that big of a deal. But again, maybe I'm biased because I've been doing it for so long now. But that's just the thing. That's just how it is with a lot of people in the space. And I don't know. I can't say anything more about it in that regard. That's just what it comes down to. People they like less hoops. They like things to be easy, right? Everybody, for the most part, does. Um, so let's see here. I'm going to read this comment before I put it up. Jin, because we will be getting to this person specifically, of course. Yeah, we will save that. Jimmy, thank you. Yeah, it was a good old time, of course, over at SCMP. Always a good time there for the one Fight Night 7 Fight Companion with JHK and Chris. Good stuff. Shouts to them always. James says, I think we need to acknowledge that Whaley never gets a fair shake from people. That's what I'm saying. But who does, though, James? Like, on it, like, I love Whaley too. There's no secret. I feel like you guys feel like I don't like her all of a sudden, but I have always liked her, and she's still one of my favorites. But I'm, trying to be realistic about this. Like, every single fighter gets hate. Of course, some more than others, but especially like champions and everything. Like, think about, I saw people calling Volkanovski overrated before the Makachev fight. Before, and I'm sure some people are still doing it afterwards, but like, nobody gets a fair shake. Life isn't fair, unfortunately, but like, it's just not a Whaley exclusive thing. Yes, maybe she gets some more ridiculous types of things. Obviously, I mean, we see it in on the Fight Companion that Jimmy just mentioned from last week. My goodness, we got it there from the dumbass who can't help but do his thing. Whoever that is, I'm saying already too much about him, but yeah, it's not fair for anybody. Nobody is fairly treated, like, honestly. Jimmy says, would I ever have Presnell on the show? Seems like a cool dude. On this show? Yeah, I mean, I think I've mentioned this before. The thing about having guests on this show in particular is nobody really talks about or the women kind of as much or as deeply as we do, as I do. And that's, again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn because, as you will see momentarily when we get to the recaps, I'm slipping up these days. It's hard for me to keep track of everything. But that's usually the thing with guests is like, I don't want to bring someone on and then have them not able to talk about too much stuff because we're following it closer here than maybe they do. And they'll admit that sometimes. But that's kind of why it's hard to get guests unless there's somebody who's like a fighter specifically. Like Jillian has been great. She's a great guest to have, and we'll definitely get her back at some point. But yeah, that's pretty much what it boils down to for this show specifically. James says, I don't think it's lazy. It is lazy. Trust me. In terms of, I'm talking about everybody, not just Asian fighters, not just Whaley. Every single, any fighter who doesn't speak English for an English speaker, or I'm sure you could even say just other languages conflicting, people don't like to do that because it's harder, quote unquote harder. It's more work. So they don't like to do it. It is 100% laziness. Trust me. I promise you this. I've spoken to people about it. And that's just, you can tell by watching and seeing how much coverage is out there or lack thereof. It is that. I promise you. But he says, because when Whaley did talk to the media, they got angry with what she said. And what is that? Like, I need examples. You can't just say that. Again, I think she just gets unfairly treated for whatever reason. I don't know. When you bring this stuff up, I need examples from here on, you guys, because it's just like, then we can actually talk about it specifically, because I really don't agree sometimes with what you're saying. People got angry. Like, I don't know how many, I don't see anger, maybe like disagreement with certain things. But even then, like, I think a lot of people like Whaley. I really do. I don't see much for her to not like, of course, but that's me. And like I said, I like her. So Alvin, good to see you, sir. Let's enjoy our company indeed. Makoto says, we love increasing your algo by talking about this. I don't know if it works that way, but if it does, all right. Yeah. Jimmy said maybe some other show because Fresno is kind of like you said, like you, since he takes time to research things, which is what we ask for. Yeah, I mean, Chris, literally, we could go hang out whenever we've hung out once since he moved here, um, since he moved to our area, my area. Um, so like I think it would be really cool to do like something in person, like maybe for a fight companion, but I have to figure out kind of the technological aspects of that or whatnot. But certainly possible. Certainly possible to do some fun things together. Um so James says Pat said STFO. I don't know what that stands for. Fight Rose or be quiet. There's an example for you. Well, what was it in reference to? Like Whaley hasn't really talked about any opponents. Oh, the Valentina thing is what you're maybe mentioning. Well, see, that's a thing too. Let's talk about that real quickly here um before we get into the actual show lineup here. What happens so much is I don't think it would be out of context necessarily, but how many times this happens all the time. I see fans do this throughout my whole career, which is so annoying. But it's like when when let's say an interviewer, like let's say me, let's say I asked Whaley about Valentina, and then the fans would be like, I can't believe she's talking about Valentina. Well, yeah, she's talking about her because I fucking asked her. Like the person, she didn't just bring the person up by themselves. So in those cases, I don't think it's fair to obviously judge someone in that regard. I'm assuming that might be what you're referring to, James. But I mean, that kind of thing happens all the time with everybody. Um, Interviewers will ask about a different fighter, and then obviously for some reason, like fans who only see even when they see, like, I feel like the question to get asked, they're still like, "Why are they talking about that person? Did you not see them not bring it up?" Like, very rarely do the fighters themselves kind of bring up the context or the topic there in that regard. So, um, that's just an example, but that happens all the time. Um, and James says, and from a Brian Campbell article said she doesn't gain recognition as champion until she beats Rose. So again, that goes back to the DC Jones comparison. Same exact thing, right? And again, there's more examples than that, but I understand that. Like, I don't think it's 100% true or fair because she's already been a champion, right? As opposed to DC at that time. But you can't say that doesn't make sense. Like that, she does have technically two losses to her. Of course, we can argue all day about the second one, but that's you understand the logic there. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. As Jimmy says, we need more guys like Presnell and you since we are in a time of bad MMA content everywhere. Well, appreciate that greatly, Jimmy. You are too kind. And yeah, shout outs to Chris. Go check him out. MMA Ecosystem, for those of you who are unaware who we're talking about specifically, Chris Presnell. Mary, how are you doing? Hello, would you ever get a green screen with the background? I've been thinking about this actually, especially since I've been doing my over on my personal channel, my gaming little videos, little highlight clips. If you have been seeing those, which are just for fun, I really enjoy doing those. And I would like to do live streams one day, but my internet is not good enough to handle that. As you guys saw when I did a test with Pat a while back, that was like last year before we started here at WMMAnia. So I've been thinking about a green screen, and obviously I got this nice plain gray background, but yeah, you can obviously have a lot of fun with green screens for sure. So maybe, Mary. It's definitely I've been thinking about it already, so you're on the same page as me. But all right, you guys, let's get into the actual show portion of things. I mean, this is still a part of the show, of course. I love a good random Q&A, and I have been wanting to do one of those again. It's just kind of hard to find the time when I have nothing to do. It's like I like to do nothing when I have nothing to do sometimes because we're always grinding away. But anyway, let's get into things. Recapping PFL Challenger Series. Was it week 5, the flyweights? So yeah, just kind of gonna look over the results here real quick and talk about them because I wasn't able to I haven't watched this yet, but I do want to go back on it, of course, especially for our contract winner. But we still talk about the results. I'm not a liar. I'm not gonna sugarcoat things and pretend like I saw stuff or know things about it when I didn't actually see it yet. But it is a part of the news technically, so we do got to get to it. At least that's how I roll. So, PFL Challenger Series, week 5, 4 fights. At top of it, Caitlin Neal gets unanimous decision over Catherine Corrigines. Don't have the scorecards here. Probably should have. Here, let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Actually, see the specifics of the rounds, because that's what are we doing, Tapology? We're dropping the ball here. The lack of scores. Week 5, 2023. All right. Well, that didn't work out as good. PFL just makes it so kind of hard to track down their events. Like, that's one of the most annoying things probably about the PFL, if I'm going to be totally honest. Let's see. And I go to the event list and it's still hard to find. What is going on here? It's not even on here. Okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to spend too much time on that. We tried. Anyway, Shanna Young also gets unanimous, if I can speak today, decision over Sandra Lovato. Congrats to her. I think these were all unanimous. All right, never mind. Lisa Malden finished Helen Peralta in the 3rd round with ground and pound. That's right. I did see the highlights of that. And then Desiree Dirty Des Yanez gets the win over Myra Mazar as well. There's a typo there. It says 13-minute fight. That is not the case. And Desiree ends up getting the contract. So congratulations to her. She will be in. Well, here's the weird thing, right, you guys? Here's the big talking point about this. I mean, Desiree, I think undeniably going into this was probably my favorite in terms of like who was the best fighter. Yeah, pretty comfortably. I think I'd probably rank them to do rankings here out of the winners, since not going to rank the fight specifically since I haven't seen them yet. Desiree at 1. Young and Neal's pretty close. I think I'd slightly lean towards Neal just because we've kind of seen what Shanna Young's all about. But again, not sure exactly how she looked in that one. We'll have to see for myself. But they're kind of 2A, 2B, I think. I'd slightly lean Caitlin Neal, though. Desiree 1, and then Malden. Just has the least amount of experience, too, of them. So by default, kind of falls into that 4 spot. But here's the interesting thing, right, is Yanez gets the contract, so she's really the only win that matters in this case, which is kind of strange in a way, but that makes it more important. It's much more of an intriguing concept than Contender Series at this point, because you don't just win and get in. So it makes it all the more special that Desiree is now a part of the PFL roster. And here's the interesting thing. Again, I'll get to it. She is going to be a part of the season, but PFL is doing flyweights for Europe, but not global or their regular, season tournament business until next year. So that's what she has been signed to. So, like, are they just going to get her random fights for the rest of this year? Is she going to be allowed to go fight other places? That's what I'm kind of not so sure about. And I think I might ask about that more too, because it's February. Like, you ever signed for next year? Like, I don't know why didn't you just do, like, I get you're selling the Europe thing, but you could also do, I don't know. You could have just had that be the main one. I don't understand. Kind of weird, not fair to the flyweights a little bit, which is funny because it's a real division, unlike, I mean, their featherweight division, which we will get to, is better this year, but still not quite the same compared to, like, especially flyweight. I don't know. It's all kind of weird. But congrats to Desiree, regardless. I mean, good for her. Yeah. So that was PFL Challenger Series week 5 from the past week. I think that was on Friday. I don't even remember what I was doing on Friday. Everything's a blur these days. But Ghost says, will you ever get a soundboard? Mainly a toilet sound for my bad takes. Well, the funny thing is, Ghost, like I don't need a quote unquote soundboard on StreamYard because I can actually just, I think they added the option here to where, yeah, I think I can just upload things. Because you know how we can do the music to start the show and everything. I can play it right now, like this. Is it going? I don't have my headphones in. Yeah, I can just play it whenever. So like that, I think I can add sounds just on here, which is nice. It's a great little feature. I've just been too lazy to do it. So maybe I'll get around to it one of these days, but that would be fun. But I also have to go back and forth between tabs. It's me being lazy. That's what it is, Ghost. But we do have the power. We have the technology for additional goofy sounds. That's for sure. Serene says, don't worry about not watching anything. I see content every day about MA and the people don't usually watch anyway. Well, that's why I need to watch it so that you guys don't have to. That's the point. That is the point. As James says, did you know that Dez is also CSA PadWorks on the PadWorks system with Kyrian Fitzgibbons? She and Jess were doing drills. Do you know if she's still with CSA? As I enjoy the videos. Well, that is cool to hear she was a part of those. Yeah, I know that she was. Last time I talked to Desiree was, I think, before her Bellator debut, so a while ago. And I don't remember if she was with CSA at the time. I think she kind of goes there just occasionally, maybe only for like camps. I don't know if she lives like right too close to it, close enough to go there regularly. So yeah, I'm not sure, but I might be catching up with her again soon here after this win. So you can figure that out, but that is cool to know she was a part of those. So yeah. And shout outs to CSA and Kyrian. He is a fantastic coach. Alvin says, I thought this past weekend of fights was sensational. All of us should not put fighters who lost down, but root for all to bounce back and perform better next time. You win or you learn. There we go. You'll love to hear it. Rio says, can Des win the tournament? 100%. Yeah, I think she is would be. You look at the European series. Let's just look at all the fighters who have been involved right now with flyweight and PFL. It's like her and Dakota are the top two, pretty clearly. Dakota Ditcheva, the undefeated prospect from Wales, who she's also been at CSA, I think, or Team Alpha Male a little bit within the past year or so. So there's kind of some connections there. But yeah, I think Desiree and Dakota are pretty clear favorites out of, who we see on the European side. So, and James says, do I consider Fitzgibbons a good striking coach? Yeah, he's always been pretty good from what I've seen. And it's pretty close, Rio. Sorry, I'm so used to getting the name the other way. But she's got an experience edge, I think you could say. I mean, she's fought in more significant places than Dakota, but Dakota is a very legit prospect. I think it's very, I don't know, it's a toss-up between those two in terms of who the front runner to win is at flyweight. So before we move on here, I guess I should mention the one championship action. We can talk about that real quick since I didn't put it on the lineup just because I don't know. I don't have a good reason. Well, for the MMA fight, Victoria Souza, my connection was really choppy for that. Like when I do the fight companions and I have to watch the prelims on YouTube, it just does not cooperate very well. I don't know what is wrong with that, but Amazon and Prime is fine. It was fine during the rest of the main card and everything. But yeah, for the prelims, it was kind of hard. So I didn't really see the Victoria Souza fight as much as I would have liked to when we were watching on the companion. But the Danielle Kelly and Ayaka Mura grappling match was a very interesting one. So I want to get your thoughts on that one, you guys. Drop them in there if you did watch that match with us or watched it afterwards or whenever. But Danielle Kelly gets the decision win over Ayaka Mura. Very fun grappling match. I enjoyed that a lot. There were some bad positions for both. And like, it's weird because apparently like how they score those matches is whoever is closer to getting a submission or whoever has more submission attempts. I think it's attempts maybe. And if that's the case, they both had 1. Like Ayaka had her in the head and arm scarf hold position and then was going for the arm bar. So that was 1. And then Danielle was working for a rear naked choke at the end of the fight. So that'd be a draw then, right? But instead, Danielle Kelly wins it. And then even then, Ayaka was having more success throughout the whole fight. But if that doesn't matter, then whatever. If it's simply submission attempts, then that's a draw. Like they each had 1. You cannot. There were no other ones. I saw the fight, the match. I know what is a submission attempt and not, unless I'm forgetting one. But that was a 1-1. Should have been a draw in that case. And if there's more factors to the scoring than just that, then Ayaka probably should have won. It's interesting. We talked about it when we were watching it, of course, but it was a fun match. I enjoyed it a lot. I'd give it an 8 out of 10 in terms of entertainment wise. And, I love the grappling. So I was fine with that. Fine with the match as a match, I guess you could say. But the result's kind of interesting to me. I wouldn't have been mad if it went either way. I'm not mad that Danielle won, but I'm just kind of trying to figure out the logic behind that because it was I would have leaned towards Ayaka if I did have to probably score that. So Jin says 1 championship Fire Lord. Yep, indeed, coming up. Rain says, since you mentioned 1, how excited are you for Nongo versus Haggerty? Should be good. Should be good. Pretty excited. And man, real quick to speak about great strikers. I was at Sanchai in the co-main event. I was still blown away by that leg kick. Just that one leg kick TKO within like 40 seconds. I don't even know. That was insane. Rio says, I'm not really a fan of the grappling in between fights. Why not just have a 1 grappling event instead of grappling in between fights? To make sure that people watch them. That's why I think they don't want to see grappling events just not do well. Which is possible judging by how much people don't seem to like them. But again, it's all, like I said this on the stream too, it's all about the rule set and making things kind of clear. Like I think Submission Underground has a pretty perfect way of how they did it because it doesn't look like Sug is anymore. But yeah, one's is just kind of, I don't know. I think you need to have that solid decider at the end if it does go to decision. Cintro says, I thought Miura did some fantastic things. Yeah, she looked great. It was really nice. And Ghost says, do they score sweeps? I don't think so. Like I remember after the fight, I was kind of looking at things and it seems like they only score submission attempts, like our points, which again, that would have made that match a draw. As James says, he also leaned towards Ayaka, right? Like if you judge it normally how you would judge a regular fight, I think she definitely wins that. But yeah. What is up, dude? Alex in the chat. Shouts to him. Fellow MMA maniac. Crazy to think about, huh, Alex? I was thinking about it after I was messaging you, man. Like, how cool is it that we are working together like this these days? Very, very crazy. Rain says that 1 leg kick was crazy. That was maybe my highlight of the weekend, honestly. That was one of, you guys know I love the rare stuff. Never seen that before. I've seen it in terms of like injury, but I don't think that wasn't necessarily an injury to Yusupov in terms of like, you look at what happened with Trent Girdham, right? Trent Girdham, is that the name I'm thinking of? I might be blanking. But in Ryzen a couple months ago when he dislocated his kneecap, and that was just disgusting. But that was from an injury, right? Like this was just clean flush leg kick, shut him down. Very odd, very insane. And Rio says, people watch Submission Underground, right? Yeah, that's the thing is like people love Submission Underground. And of course, Chael would get great names for those events, but their like style and rule set is different, which I think is what is very important for grappling. And James says, the reason I had it for Ayaka was due to her positional advantage, but I don't know if that is scored. Yeah, like she had much more time in great positions and she even threatened with submission. Like there's no denying that. She had more success from positional standpoints for more of the fight, for more of the match than she did not. That's for sure. As Rain says, we never see that in Muay Thai, specifically since they are so good at defending low kicks. So even more. Yeah, I mean, I cannot say enough great things about that. Indeed, Alex, MMA Mania brothers for life. Now we can say that get matching tattoos on our butt cheeks. Maybe not there. I don't know. That's the first place that came to mind because I could see you at least agreeing to do that. So, but anyway, moving along. James says, "Do I think positional advantage is good for grappling match scoring?" It's tricky, right? Because I think you can't just use MMA. Well, you could, but you need very smart grappling judges in that case to know like what is good position and not. Because again, you can have better position off the bottom sometimes. People will always argue um, full guard is neutral, right? Which I think that is still a fair claim, but yeah, I don't know. It's you need to make the rules very clear, I think. But anyway, we'll move along. Get Bellator 291 out of the way. Recap this. Again, have not got to watch these fights either, so shame on me. But Sinead Kavanaugh gets the job done. She gets redemption over Janae Harding, which, first of all, what a 30-27 and then 229-28s. I saw some people kind of didn't agree with this, which is interesting. Makes me want to check it out even more, which I will eventually. And as I was talking about in the lead up to this, Sinead Kavanaugh was winning the first fight until she got cut. At least I thought so. So this doesn't surprise me a whole bunch. Janae's kind of been on a skid here and continues that. So I don't know what is going to be next for her. Her record is not, she just has not had much success lately, which is unfortunate because Janae, friend of the show, the first guest of the show, going back to the day, as I was saying as well. I think she was on episode 3 of WMMA today. So that's pretty insane to think about. But Janae Harding was the OG guest. So bummer for her. But Sinead gets back or continues. I feel like she's getting back in the win column because of her ridiculous win against Leah McCord. But she's on a winning streak now. So that feels like that should have been a loss. But yeah, we all know how that one went. So congrats to Sinead. Gets the home game W, which maybe is why people are saying some of the things they're saying, but yeah. And then also Jenna Bishop maybe upset Alina Kalianadu, unanimous decision 30-27 across the board. So yeah, Alina had some good momentum going, but Jenna turns her back. Kind of the old not old dog, but I mean she's got the age on her side there, but I think she's still undefeated. So yeah, we'll have to check that one out as well. But seemed like the wrestling was what got the job done. I hate talking about these without having seen them, you guys. So I apologize, but things are just crazy right now. I lose track of time a lot, but that is Bellator 291. We'll try to get better, but so in her thigh tats, he says, okay, all right. Yeah, somewhere around that region. Jen says, could someone automatically lose a decision due to a cut? We talk about damage. That's damage, right? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an interesting debate to bring up. Yeah, I mean, again, there's it's the impactfulness along with damage, which can be the same thing, but also can't, right? Like let's say somebody gets a very slight grazing little cut, but it doesn't seem to do much to them. And think about fighters too who have a lot of scar tissue. Like of course Diego Sanchez, Nate Diaz are probably the absolute best examples you could possibly choose. You sneeze on them and they will start bleeding. So in their cases, it's like, well, how much did that really hurt or impact them? Probably not a lot. But again, they got hit, so that means it did something. So it's kind of it's a tricky thing to assess, but I think it scores in some way because it does show that they got hit, right? I mean, unless it was like an accidental headbutt or something weird like that, but we don't see that too often. So automatically losing due to a cut, I mean, they can do that from doctor stoppages, but losing a decision, I mean, I don't know. I mean, hey, I mentioned Diego Sanchez. Have you guys seen Diego versus Martin Kampman? Jesus. I mean, his face was hanging off, and he still somehow won that fight. But throwback to that one. Um, Ridiculous. Diego Sanchez, the robbery king, probably. As much as I loved the guy in his prime, he had some really insane wins that shouldn't have been wins. Jumbo, how are you doing? Just to say, I cut my opponent in round 1, but I lose 2 to 3 rounds handily. Yeah, it's not gonna matter. In that case, in that example, um, you're not gonna lose just for that. And I think we've seen that plenty of times too. So Darren Elkin's another guy as an example there. But anyway, let's get to UFC Vegas 70. Did watch these fights, so apologies again, you guys. But we could talk about these, and we will talk about the biggest one of the weekend, the most topical one, if you will, as she's back. Tatiana Suarez defeats Montana De La Rosa via second round submission guillotine at 251, puts the strawweight and flyweight division back on notice. My goodness, you cannot help but feel good for Tatiana. I mean, she is so likable just as a person. And then as a fighter, I always love a dominant wrestler who can do exactly what they're going to tell you they're going to do, and then they go out and do it. And she's back, and she looked pretty darn good. Honestly, I thought she started off a little bit slow, and I think you can credit that more to maybe Montana being pretty defensively sound, honestly. Like, I don't think it was a bad performance from Montana either. I mean, she made a critical error in the beginning of the fight when Tatiana was going for the single leg, I believe it was, going for the takedown, and Montana decided to go for the guillotine instead of not going for the guillotine, and gave up the position and fell to her back, and really didn't even have it at any point. I was like, that was not a good moment. And we've seen some bad fight IQ moments from Montana in the past. That was her only one in this fight in particular. I thought she did pretty well defensively for the most part, until clearly she, ended up giving up the neck at the end there. And that's exactly what Tatiana would have wanted. I mean, overall, still, I don't know if I'd say it was a perfect fight, because I mean, I don't know. It was a pretty darn close to exactly what you'd want. I mean, a finish, that's perfect, ideal. Um, didn't do too much damage to Montana, right? Like, didn't beat her up terribly, but she was firmly in control the whole time. Didn't look like she had been away for as long as she was. Maybe a little bit stiff on the feet again in the beginning. Like I said, she was kind of not taking her time, but kind of getting comfortable in there a bit. It seemed like to me anyway. And then after that, it was kind of just all systems going. She was doing her thing, and did not give up on that guillotine. And again, with Patchy Mix, that's a pretty good guy to have helping with your guillotines. So Tatiana, big win, much needed, and now has her sights set on returning to strawweight, which, I mean, I'm excited to see her in either division. So whichever one she would have wanted would have been cool. But I like the determination to want to continue where she left off. And I mean, she's one fight away from a title shot max. She could even get one next, which don't think I necessarily agree with that, just because I want to see her make the weight first, because that's always kind of, you want to be careful with that. Not that that's a huge concern, but again, the time away and having not done the cut in a good while, I think it would be important to see her make the weight before fighting for the title. It's just a matter of who you match her up with against, because strawweight is kind of weird right now. I put my matchups out there that I would kind of like to see, which I think you could do Andrade versus Esparza. I want to see Rose versus Jiaonan next. Personally, I like that matchup stylistically, I think, more than maybe some of the other ones. I know Tatiana has mentioned Rose already, so you could do that too. But I think there's the possibility between, you could do Lemos Suarez. That could work. It's weird how you kind of mix and match put Andrade and Esparza to the side. That one's locked. Good. Do that one next. And it's just a matter of how you mix and match between Weili, Lemos, Suarez, Rose, and Xiaonan. I mean, you could kind of mix it up in several different ways. You could do Lemos, Xiaonan if you don't want to do Lemos versus Weili for the title next. You could do, you could do Suarez versus Rose or Xiaonan. I mean, there's a lot of options. It's just it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. I don't really know. I don't think I'd be too mad at any of them. I think the ones I put out there, though, I like the stylistic matchup of Rose versus Xiaonan the most. Wouldn't hate some of the other ones really either, but that's just kind of where I feel about it. So performance-wise, though, let's put our rankings in. Performance-wise for Suarez, I think this is probably still, it's very high. I think an 8. I'd give her an 8. Very good. Very good. And as a fight, maybe like honestly a 5, maybe a 6. It wasn't super duper exciting or competitive as you would like it to be, but it was more of the intrigue of it was all about, the Tatiana story. So in terms of a fight itself, wasn't too crazy, but we saw some very nice things in it, some very nice moments more than anything. So oh, here we are. James says he doesn't feel good for Tatiana. Well, that's not very nice. People are already crowning her the double champ like she's already done it. It makes me angry. Well, that's then be mad at them. Don't be mad at her. That's not her fault. I mean, it is her fault because she's going out there and still staying undefeated. But yes, people are incredibly high on her. She's very good. Rain says, I took this from Mike's MMA picks, but Suarez really struggled in 50-50 positions, so be careful if you think she's going to run through everyone. Well, again, this was her first fight in nearly 4 years. So, like I said, I don't think it was about as good as she could have asked for without being perfect. Like, I think we got to give credit to Montana here, right? I think Montana she did actually very good in this fight for like what she was working with. Not what she was working with, but I guess you could say in that regard is she was working with a Tatiana who was coming back. But I think that's more credit to Montana than anything, along with all the factors. So yeah, but okay, so what are we trying to do here? Ghost is carrying over Twitter conversation, which I already answered this. I think don't like Whaley working with Frank. Josh Anger, Master helps finding specific counters for specific positions. I never said it didn't. We talked about game planning, but if you don't have the skill set, it doesn't matter. Like having a good offensive line, but a bad running back. I don't know if that comparison works because a bad running back with a good defense, a good offensive line is automatically a better running back. You know what I mean? Like that is a very helpful thing to have. And you look at this example right here, Ghost, is why I consider probably Barry Sanders the best running back of all time. I mean, look at what he was working with. Absolutely nothing. The guy had the most negative yards of all time, but still managed to work around. Like he had to work for like double of what he was rushing for because he had just no line whatsoever. And then you look at the opposite side of that, Emmitt Smith, who he was a good running back, but incredibly padded career because of his consistently great offensive lines. So I don't know if you can apply that necessarily the same way here because it's also a team sport. But yeah, for the most part, I get what you're saying. He says, Whaley has the ability to change her style to fit the weaknesses of her opponents. That's not to say she'll win all the time, but she comes prepared. Agreed. Unlike most ladies in the division who will just K and impose their style. All right, so I don't know what much more you want me to add to that. James says, this is what I want. I want Suarez to fight Whaley now so Whaley can show everyone what's up. All right, so he wants the title shot next for Whaley. I mean, I don't know if the timing really matters on that. I think it's probably a guarantee that we're going to see Tatiana fight for the title, whether it's her next fight or the one after. I think she probably does she can beat anybody, and she probably beats whoever whatever top contender she does get next, honestly. I mean, yeah. Yeah. And Ghost is failing to understand that Whaley is completely outclassed in wrestling. I don't think that's the case either. Completely outclassed. I don't think so. Um, I think in that thread, what I was saying was it wouldn't be like a completely out and a complete outclassing, but she'd be kind of stuck. It'd be I don't know if the grappling exchanges would be very exciting. They'd be kind of stalling positions. Like think about not stalling, but where they're negated a little bit with one person clearly on the offensive and clearly on the defensive. So think about this is gonna be kind of a not great comparison in terms of excitement, but think about like Kamaru Usman versus Damian Maya and also Tyron Woodley versus Damian Maya a little bit. Um, maybe more so the Kamaru fight, but where their styles of grappling, it's very clear what that one person is the one wanting to engage and kind of do a certain thing, if that makes sense, where the other person will be trying to stop it the whole time to get off their offense, right? Like Whaley will be defensive more than offensive, but able to counter in that regard, I think, in that matchup. So, yeah. I'm very intrigued by it. I think it's a very, very exciting fight, or at least the stylistic clash and matchup is one that it's very compelling. It is very good because again, sure we saw the Carla matchup just now, which different kind of elements to those fighters. And if you were to say, I mean, MMA math, I don't want to get into, but you know that there's the MMA math there already. So yeah. As Jimmy says, I think a great strat for Whaley would be to kick her knees. Since Suarez likes to enter on a straight line. I mean, that's a gamble though, because then I agree, it would probably be good to attack, especially the previously injured areas of somebody like Tatiana. But then you're gambling, giving up a leg and getting it caught, which I don't know if people have really ever tried to leg kick Tatiana. Maybe Nina in that last round, but I have to go back and rewatch that one. It's been so long. So anyway, congrats to Tatiana. Great performance in the end. She's back and continues the winning ways, and we'll see how frequently she can fight now. Like I don't think didn't seem to take too much damage. We'll see when she does ultimately come back. But earlier in the night, and man, we are really taking our time with today's episode. I gotta speed things up, you guys. Jasmine Jazz DeVicious defeated Gabriela Fernandez via unanimous decision. 30-26 is across the board, which just makes you laugh in the face of the odds makers. I tried to kind of point it out that not everybody's Natty Silva, baby. We can't all be Natty Silva as much as we want to be. Gabriela Fernandez is not. Gabriela Fernandez showed some pretty good things on the feet there, some pretty good striking. Had Jasmine kind of needing to find her that first round until the takedown came. And that ended up being the story. Just could not stop the takedowns and the wrestling. And Jasmine kind of beat the shit out of her. Look at the time. I mean, my goodness, nearly 3 minutes exactly in the first round. 4:22, almost the entire second round. 4:11. It was one-way traffic, very dominant. Nearly stopped her in that second round, which was the 10-8. Like exactly the kind of rebound fight you would have wanted if you were Jasmine. So she did great in this one. And yeah, really, if you bet on her, then good for you. I mean, I still am surprised by that. But performance-wise for Jasmine again, I mean, pretty darn good, about as good as you could ask for. I give it a 9 because she went out there, showed out. As a fight, it was all right. Again, I enjoyed it, but it was not a great fight because it was very one-sided. So in terms of seeing her kind of bounce back and fight the way she was supposed to, fight smart strategy to get the win, I'd give it a solid 5, right in the middle, maybe a 6 to be generous. But yeah, congrats to Jasmine. Yes. So let's see here. All right, so that is UFC Vegas 70, We'll be moving along to the news cycle here in a hot minute. Yes, let me get to you guys real quick. Makoto says, which performance was better, Weili versus Carla or Suarez versus Carla? He says Weili, since she showed all the aspects of MMA and finished her quicker. Huh. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know if I think they're probably about equal. I mean, again, it's been years since the Carla versus Tatiana fight, but that was a complete one-sided just domination. I mean, Tatiana, I think she was 10-8 in her every round and beating her at what she does best, which makes it even more insane. Of course, people maybe argue the size difference or whatever, but like that was as one-sided as Weili's was as well. Like it wasn't as dominant as the Carla win, as Tatiana's win. Yes, it was quicker, all that stuff, showed some other things than just wrestling her, but they were both brilliant. So I think it might be about even. I'd have to go back and rewatch the Tatiana one maybe for comfortably saying, but off the top of my head and remembering how that went, like it was not even. Like it was one of the more one-sided fights you would see. So yeah, I understand the thought there. As Ghost says, everything about Suarez just yells straight punches to the body would really bother her. Potentially. I mean, Makoto, did you see the Suarez versus Carla fight though? Like, be honest with me. That was that was just a beat down. And I mean, here, let me look. I want to look at the stats really quick now that you mentioned this. See how many strikes that Carla even landed. And now I'm fascinated. You're making me drag this on here. As I was saying, we got to speed things up. So just really quickly, I got to look at stats real fast here. What do we got? Oh boy, it's not good. It is not good. She landed 12 strikes. Carla was outstruck 136 to 12. She only was able to throw 18 in that fight. Are you kidding me? I mean, my goodness, how long did this last? Till 4:33 of the third round. I mean, that's as dominant as it gets, man. And Carla landed 19 against Weili. So, and threw 50 in much less time. Like if you're gonna look at the numbers specifically there, I wanted to see that. So that was a complete shutdown. And I hear you, Makoto. I understand the thought, like I said, but in terms of domination, like I think Suarez probably gets the edge in that one. Like Carla was at least able to do some things against Weili, like attempt takedowns. At least she attempted. And yeah. All right, let's get to the news. Let's breeze on through it. We got some great ones here, so I'm excited to talk about them. But let's try and make the time. Well, I guess we're at a pretty good clip. This is working pretty nicely. But starting things off with the strawweight division, and I didn't mention one of these fighters in our strawweight talk because of the fact they have been booked now, as Marina Rodriguez is taking on Verna Jandiroba, UFC 288 on May 6th. Location to be determined. God damn it, UFC. Why do you do this to me? I mean, it's just the strawweight division. I love both of these fighters so much. Two of my favorites. So this is a bittersweet matchup. Always a fun stylistic clash, though, when you get the clear, better striker versus the clear, better grappler. We'll see if Verna can pull off what Mackenzie Dern could not. I feel like it's been so long since we saw Verna fight too. I can't even remember what her last fight was. It was the Hebos one, wasn't it? Yeah. That feels like so long ago. I wonder what's been going on with Verna. I have to catch up with her soon. Ahead of this one. But love this matchup. Kind of surprised they made it because, of course, Marina's still around the top. Just has the Lemos loss now, and Verena's still kind of around back end of the top 10, but an incredibly talented threat on the ground always. Fascinating matchup. I think I think that Verena is actually probably a tougher matchup for Marina than Mackenzie Dern is, simply because Verena's striking a little bit cleaner. I mean, obviously we saw how well improved she looked against Kanako, but then kind of didn't show up the same way against Hebos. Majorly, this has always been the case with Verena, is that her striking is to set up her grappling and her takedowns, which she has done brilliantly over the years. She can exploit that against Marina. We will see, but Marina's obviously continually improved her defenses in the grappling department. It's an interesting matchup. I really like it. I hate it from a fan perspective because, again, somebody's got to lose. I don't hate it as much as Kanako versus Verena. That one was real sad. And speaking of Kanako, we need her back because she hasn't fought since that loss either. My goodness. Where's Kanako when I need her most? But yeah, stylistically, matchmaking wise, I mean, I guess it's not too terrible. They're still top 10. Marina could have fought one of the other people we mentioned in that mix, but it's fine. I think it's all fine. All works out. And it's funny too. They used to be on the same management. I don't know if they are still under the same management now. I know people are moving around a little bit, but anyway, this is it's about an 8 for me. I think this is going to be a good fun one. Very interesting, especially considering we saw kind of a version of it with the Mackenzie Dern versus Rodriguez matchup. And funny enough, they did fight both of them. And you can do the MMA math on that one if you want. But again, I still think you can argue Verena beat Mackenzie. So don't know. We'll see how it plays out. Looking forward to it. An important one at 115. But speaking of Mackenzie Dern, she also has a fight as she is taking on Angela Hill at the UFC Fight Night event on May 13th. No location yet. These May fights a ways away a little bit. And let's just, again, kind of similar situation where interesting to see. I didn't quite expect this to be made, but here we are. I mean, Angela on a 2-fight winning streak now. Good wins over Lupi Godinez and Emily Ducote. Upset, if you will. And, getting some awards from us at the beginning of the year, at the end of 2022. This matchup, though, is one where I think can either... It's going to make one of them look really bad. One way or another, somebody's going to look terrible because Angela Hill is one of those fighters who is probably the number one fighter who can make Mackenzie Dern look like she has learned how to do takedowns, because Angela Hill gets taken down by practically everybody. Like even in her wins, you go back to the Ashley Yoder fight, she still got taken down by her, and she's pretty good at getting back up. But I'm not at all ever confident in Mackenzie Dern getting takedowns, but if she's going to, I think she could probably get one on a very, very, very not good looking one on Angela Hill. And then, get submitted, because that's what's likely going to happen there. Even though Angela Hill is continually improving, even at her age, I don't know if it'll be enough. So yeah, this is an interesting one. On the feet, though, Angela should be able to, of course, piece her up with all the combinations and footwork, keep away. But it's kind of a weird matchup the more I think about it. But it's a very weird one. But I think it favors Mackenzie a decent bit, and is one that can make her look, can kind of be deceiving, I think, to people, especially as she's needing to rebound. But this is like it just is what it is. I think it's a 5 for me. Yeah, it's a weird one. I don't know. I feel the more I talk about it right there, I feel strange. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but it's a 5. It's okay. We'll see. It doesn't do too much. Doesn't hurt anything in the division. It can be huge for Angela if she wins. Of course, she can get back up to a good spot. But yeah. All right, and then we stick with the strawweights. Karolina Kowalkiewicz is taking on everyone's favorite stripper, Vanessa Demopoulos. Everyone's favorite former stripper, excuse me. On that same event, the fight night on May 13th, no location. See where they go for that one. But the resurgence of Carolina looks to try and continue as she takes on Vanessa Demopoulos, little monster, right? So this is a pretty fun fight. I think has all the makings of being pretty good. Both kind of trying to climb the ranks, and I mean specifically Carolina trying to climb back up after the days of when she was a title contender. See if she can do that against Vanessa. I don't really have anything wrong with this one. I think, of course, we saw some wrinkles to improved grappling from Carolina, but it was against Felice Herrig, who was on the way out, obviously. Or Vanessa, pretty darn good on the ground, so I don't think she'll want to play around there. It'll be pretty cut and dry who will want to do what in this one, but matchmaking wise, I'm fine with it. I think it's kind of fun to see Vanessa actually getting these matchups of I could say old guard a little bit. She fought Jinyu Fry, and then now she's got Carolina. I don't know. I'm cool with it. I'm good with it. This is I'm interested. I think it'll be fun. It's about a 7 for me. I like this one. I think it's all good in my books. All good. All right, and then we stick to strawweight some more as we go across the ocean over to Tokyo. As Emi Fujino is back, the Kamikaze Angel takes on Edna Oliveira. Pancrase 332, March 26th. There we go. This is you like to see this because it is much less manipulative BS than some of the last couple Emi Fujino fights that we got since she's fought since she had the Ayaka rematch. She's kind of had some interesting matchups, but this one's better. I mean, Edna Oliveira, not the best fighter. I mean, she's 10-11-1, I believe is her record, but at least she has over 20 fights. So she's got more experience, and she's fought some pretty good people. Of course, as you might recognize her name on some resumes. Better names on the losing end than the wins, but Emmy just going for as long as she can. My goodness, I don't know when she's looking to call it, but always fascinated by the Pioneer. So looking forward to that one. Much more than maybe the last couple, but it's a 6 for me. I like Emi Fujino. She's one of those fighters who I'm always fascinated to see if she'll kick. Probably won't. She doesn't do that. Maybe she has the Alima hip issues, which is what we're going to call it from now on. I'll have to maybe I can figure that out. Maybe chat with her again before that. We shall see. But all right, then last but not least in the news cycle today, I mentioned it earlier. PFL has announced the rest of the featherweight matchups to start the season on April 7th, Las Vegas. Let's take a look at them, shall we? At the top here, Elena Kolesnik takes on Aspen Ladd. So, like I said already, very dumb that Aspen Ladd isn't fighting Larissa Pacheco out the gate. I don't understand the logic behind that not just happening right away. Instead, you give it to Julia Budd. Like, it makes me think the PFL, the matchmakers, thought that Julia should have won the fight, which I know a lot of people did think she beat Ladd. So they're rewarding Budd in that way because that's the co-main event. Like, so that's dumb. But that's that fight. Martina Yendrova is welcoming Amber Leibrock to the PFL. How about that? Good for Amber. Congrats to her for getting this opportunity. She's been OG Invicta vet, been in Bellator, of course. Then Amanda Leave and Carolina Sobek, the two most inexperienced, the young guns kind of the tournament. And then we have Marina Makhnatkina welcoming Yoko Higashi. Yoko Higashi to the PFL. The Deep Jewels featherweight champ, you guys. That's probably the coolest, most interesting thing to me about this is that I am glad to see PFL at least taking some looks at Deep Jewels and actually making some moves with them. That should give Rin Nakai some hope because if they're willing to take Yoko and you want people for your flyweight season next year, Rin Nakai is begging to come to America. There you go. She might be a headache to work with, but if you want some that talent, There you go. So good for Yoko. Very excited. Very cool for her. Featherweight champ. A legit person to have in here. And when we look at all the competitors, actually, like for some reason, I feel like Sebek might be coming up. She might not be a real featherweight. Leave what she's had. Her 2 fights were in PFL already, if I remember correctly. Maknavkina, real featherweight. Yandrova, real featherweight. Librock, real featherweight. Kolesnik, real featherweight. Ladd has kind of become a real featherweight. So actually, it's not too bad. And then, of course, Bud and Pacheco. We actually have, for the most part, some real fighters this time. No phonies, no bloated bantamweight flyweights, which is nice. Again, I think Sebek might be one of those, though she might be an imposter. But I'm glad to see that actually they have gotten a group of, legitimate 145ers in the division. So that's nice. But yeah, that is 2023 PFL2, that event, April 7th. I'm pretty fascinated by that bracket, actually. And, I'm glad to see again Yoko in there. It's good for Librock. She's had a crazy career. I'm fascinated to see how it plays out. Very much so. So, all right. What does everybody think about everything? As Makoto mentioned, significant strikes. Going back to that conversation, yeah, but you know how I feel about significant strikes. Jimmy says, since when did Marina have good takedown defense? Maybe good sub defense, like Jin mentioned a while ago. If Dern is taking you down, then you don't have good takedown defense. Yes, submission defense is probably better. And yeah, I understand the point there. People get caught sometimes, though. I mean, look at this is a good example. I mean, Gustafsson took down Jones. I mean, that's something that you could say. I mean, these are examples. These are comparisons. I don't know. But either way, yes, I would agree. Submission defense better than takedown defense, but it's still gotten better. Citro says, I have said this when this show was made today, but Marina doesn't excite me. I know that. Verna fights are exciting, so one part of that fight is good. Okay, fair enough. Ghost says, for the Dern Hill matchup, Dern has trouble dealing with the oblique kick and the front kick. Even when Dern injured her knee, she still walked in the oblique kick. True. So maybe throw that when Dern plots forward, as she does in every fight. Yeah, very good points. Rio says, this might be a crazy thing to compare, but I think Whaley versus Suarez will look similar to Izzy versus Brunson. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. I don't think that's going to happen at all. I mean, Brunson was incredibly wild in some of those. The Whitaker fight and the Adesanya fight it's not going to look like that. No way. Not a chance. Also think about like the body types that you're dealing with here. Like Whaley, I'm pretty sure her lengths, she's going to be at the disadvantage in terms of like, and she's going to be the smaller fighter just by a little bit, I think, in that one. Like Adesanya, obviously very long, rangy striker. I don't think that's a great comparison personally. Just I don't think it's fair to compare performances. That's like the Aljo finishing Sandhagen in a few seconds, and people extrapolating that Jan should finish Sandhagen quicker. Styles make fights. MMA math. Yeah, there you go, Jin. There you go. That's a good point. But all right, let's get on to this weekend now. UFC 285 preview. We have 3 fights to look at here. Yes, but that doesn't mean they're the same fighter whatsoever, because they are definitely very different. And Brunson is also doesn't have the best chin. That's for sure. Very different. So UFC 285, though, kicking it off here with a matchup that was rebooked at strawweight, and one I'm very much looking forward to. Jessica Penne is taking on Tabitha Ricci in one of the first couple fights of the night. I think it might be the third one. Might be the third one to kick things off. But we know exactly where this one's going, which is why I kind of like it as much as I do. plus 190. Slight underdog for Penne, minus 230. Favorite for Tabitha, so pretty decent there. Jessica's now 40, 5'5" to 5'1", so good height advantage and good reach advantage, 67-inch reach, 262. Kind of crazy if you think about Penne's length here and how she used to be an atomweight. Used to be the atomweight champ in Invicta, so was simpler times, maybe. I don't know what you want to call them. But this has the potential to be excellent, beautiful grappling. And that's what excites me about it and has since it was first announced. I hope we get some of that, but sometimes we know that cancels out. And we'll see how Jessica Penne has adjusted from her Dakota loss in her last fight that snapped, kind of the brilliant return. I don't know if I should say brilliant because, again, she definitely should have lost the, the loopy fight as much as I love Jessica Penne. But yeah, Dakota, I mean, exploited the leg kicks ridiculously in that fight. Jessica did not check them really at all, didn't defend them very well at all, had no answers as she tried to get a hold of Dakota to no avail. Tabitha is not going to be afraid to go over to the ground, which could cost her, but she's also very talented on the ground herself, obviously, which makes it so fun. I think what it will come down to in this one is who kind of initiates the engagements first. And I think Ricci will probably be the one to do that. She's pretty explosive. She really packs some heat in that right hand and she'll launch it at people and then follow it up and then turn it into takedowns. That's what she was doing in her the last two wins specifically. The Oliveira win was a good example of that. But the thing about Jessica Penne is, man, like one of the most flexible fighters in MMA history and very capable of hitting sweeps and getting out of troublesome positions, whether it's mount or what have you. She's gotten some pretty wild escapes in her career. So even if Ricci initiates and engages, gets on top or in good position before Penne does, she's still at risk. Like it's always going to be a risk. It's going to be, man, I really hope it's a grappling chess match. I don't want to see this take place on the feet for the most of the fight, which I don't think it will, but there's a possibility of that just because that's what happens when strong grapplers face each other sometimes. Like, God damn it, why does that happen? Dern and John Daroba, obviously, big example of that. Great fun fight, but we didn't get to see really any of their grappling go against each other. So I don't think this will be quite the same. Jessica has tightened things up a bit offensively over the course of her career towards the end here. But like I said, really struggled with those leg kicks, specifically the last time out. I'm not sure if Tabitha will take advantage of that, but she should certainly try. But I think she'll probably try to explode into takedowns more often than not and control Jessica from there, which I think is probably her best path to victory. But again, it's going to be a risk the entire time. So, and I feel like there's a much better chance of Jessica submitting Ricci than Ricci submitting Jessica, but I don't know. I'm really compelled by it. I like it a lot. I really do like this matchup a lot. And let's see our predictions. Wow, a lot of faith in Tabitha Ricci. That's kind of crazy to me. I don't know if I'd 91% in favor of Ricci to get the job done. That's pretty wild. That is very disrespectful. That is disrespectful to an OG pioneer and Jessica Penne, who is always dangerous on the ground. I disagree with that. I wouldn't. Man, that's pretty wild. I mean, the odds makers are pretty comfortable too in favor, but geez, that is something. So we'll just have to wait and see. Wait and see how it plays out. But I'm excited for that one. I really am. Cintro says, Brandon Olivas said that Ricci has good judo, but wrestles more. The mistake Luby made against Penne was that she used judo instead of wrestling, so Penne can get hooks along the fence. That did happen. Cintro says, Brandon said that this should be an easy win for Ricci since Ricci is an excellent athlete with solid wrestling. She is. That is very true. Like I said, I think she will probably find herself in the better positions much more often on top in the matchup. But yeah, Penne is just very good at sweeping and getting out of not great spots. As Ghost says, Penne was trying to catch the calf kicks. You cannot catch a calf kick. It's impossible since it's so low, since Penne just ate those by trying to catch them. I mean, not impossible ghost, but definitely much harder because yeah, they're lower that way. If you can time that right, I think you can catch anything to an extent. But yeah, that was her only the only thing she was trying to do. So we shall see. I'm intrigued by that one, very much so. Very much so. All of these fights, really. As we move on to the first of two flyweight fights, Viviane Araujo returns, as does Amanda Ribas. And we remember the funny thing about this kind of fight happening or coming together was the fact that this was supposed to be Cortez. Ribas goes from Cortez to she gets a higher ranked opponent for losing out on an opportunity. Kind of funny how this all shook out, but pretty compelling, pretty exciting matchup on paper. And interestingly enough, we have Viviane Araujo as plus 110 to the minus 130, slight favorite of Amanda Ribas, who, yeah, had a pretty rough defensive display against Caitlin Chukagian. Obviously, we know this 9 months ago. Crazy. Feels like longer than that, honestly. Not the brightest performance from Amanda Ribas. And I think that at this point, we know what Ribas does best, and she is relatively well-rounded, just has, very glaring defensive holes there with the chin up and, the way she was walking into every single punch that Chukagian threw at her in that fight. Not a good idea to do against Viviane Araujo, who is a lot slicker, I think, and quicker. Slicker, quicker, and much more pretty of a striker maybe than Chukagian. Not to say Chukagian is not, because you got to give your respect where it's due. But Araujo, when she is on point, is absolutely lethal, and she can crack and touch that chin of Ribas with ease. And I think she is definitely going to do that if we see Ribas come in kind of as recklessly the same way she did against Chukagian. So for Ribas, get the fight to the ground pretty much by any means necessary. Not to say Araujo isn't good there, but Ribas on top, one of the best from top position. I mean, when she gets on top of people, it's generally a very, very bad night. And I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think, arguing that maybe Ribas has had success against not the best competition in holding them down, but still you look at just kind of the sturdiness and balance from her top positions that she's had and the absolute damage that she is able to rain down against those opponents regardless. And then she has a submission abilities as well to boot. So Ribas on top is where she's at her best. And if she can get Araujo down there, probably going to be a wrap. I mean, at least you would think, in theory. I think she's capable of doing it, but she just has to get past Araujo strikes and then get a hold of her, first of all, which is easier said than done. But it's all going to come down to really if she has tightened up, tucked the chin a little bit and the defensive issues that she was having against Caitlin 9 months ago. So just at a minimal length disadvantage here is Ribas with the 5'3" to the 5'4", 68-inch reach, 266, 68 for Araujo, that is. And here we have it. The Tapology predictions say 76% Ribas, so still a pretty wide margin. What I'm noticing after looking at these more and more is that people are all pretty one-sided. I don't know what the most competitive prediction ranking has been yet, but I think it'll be a bit more competitive. I think both of the fights that we had just talked about will be a little bit more competitive than that, but that's kind of crazy to me. Again, they must be really believing that we will see the ground game of Ribas do its thing, which 6% by submission, 1% by knockout, 11% of Araujo's predictions are by knockout. I mean, I could really see this fight looking a whole lot like Marina versus Ribas. I think that's very possible. And Marina, again, you remember, did get taken down at the end of that first round there. And again, she said it was her trying to take the fight down and then, kind of backfired on her. Not so sure if Araujo will attempt the same way, but I could see this looking just like that, where then she gets cracked in the second. Who knows? Maybe not knocked out twice like Marina pretty much did to her, but my goodness, what a ridiculous moment that was, huh? So, yes. Ooh. Going back to calf kick talk, Ghost says it's impossible. The two responses to calf kicks are to check or retreat the lead leg. Just try reaching with your hand to the middle of your calf. It takes a long time on like the mid thigh. Yeah, I mean, if you were to, you would have to have very incredible timing, I guess. And it's like not even sure that's worth risking. So definitely not saying it would be easy. That's not at all what I'm saying. Rio says, "What do you think of the term future champion? People were calling that for Hebos. It annoys me. I mean, it's just believing in somebody's that good, and their potential. That's all, really. And if you don't see it, then I get why it would annoy you. But yeah, it's just. I mean, I've said that about some people. Very rarely. I don't like to throw that around, but yeah. Go says Hebot's notable habit to why she gets hit by right hands as she moves her shoulders instead of her feet. Yes, that is true. Cintra says to build off what Rio was saying about future champion, it seems like media talks about all top 15 strawweights as future champions. Not so sure about that. Seems like they don't watch the fights as closely as they should. Yeah, definitely not all the top 15. But I mean, hey, some of the strawweights are very talented, of course. And I know there were some of the top ones, more specifically. James says, I think Arujo should take this since her boxing is really good. Yeah, no, Viviani, when she's on point, like, very fun to watch. Very crisp, solid boxing technique. And she's got them hands. She does got them hands. And I think she's kind of debunked or adjusted the gas tank issue she very clearly had starting out in the UFC. So, yeah. But all right, now it's co-main event time. You know what that is? The flyweight title fight. Valentina Shevchenko is back to try and defend against Alexa Grasso. Speaking of brilliant boxing, Lobo Gym's finest, Alexa Grasso, and Brazilian Warriors, right? Her two teams that she kind of goes between. I know they're affiliates. So here we go. The co-main event. Valentina, as always, a huge favorite, minus 265 to the plus 450 underdog of Alexa Grasso. 34 years old to 29, each 5'5", 65 and a half inch reach for Shevchenko, and then 66, a little edge there for Alexa. See how much it matters. And let's just get the predictions out of the way here in terms of the picks. 93% for Valentina, with a lot of people predicting knockout. Very interesting. And submissions there. Very interesting. How many votes were there? 1,700. So I am very excited for this one too. Alexa Grasso at flyweight, I think, has really, really come into her own. She has looked great. Valentina obviously coming off the most controversial victory of her career thus far in the last fight against Taila Santos. I mean, when I think about how this matchup's going to end, I feel pretty comfortable seeing a decision in either direction. I'm not confident at all in Grasso being the one to as much as I've really liked what she's been doing lately. The thing is, just with this matchup, Grasso, such a strong boxer, moves very well, fantastic combinations. I just don't know if her style is her striking style matching up against Valentina, who is, your picture perfect, precise counter striker. Like Grasso is, I think her typical volume and output is going to be negated by trying to be cautious with running into things against Valentina, because the more that she tries to pour it on and make her uncomfortable, she's going to end up getting hit with some big things. And That's why it'll be, I think, important for her to try and mix in at least grappling threats. And why wouldn't you, especially after the Tyler Santos loss? And we've seen Alexa Grasso as a flyweight continually show off this improved grappling that she does have, and people still kind of forget about. But again, you look at the Macy Barber win specifically. I mean, showed some great reversals and defense in that matchup towards the end, and then even some good offensive moments. The Joanne Wood one obviously got a rear naked choke. That was pretty good stuff there. And then, she beat Araujo in the 5-rounder last time out, which was good for her to get that under her belt, the 5 rounds specifically. And I mean, Alexa's got cardio for days. And her big problem, or at least not problem or weakness. I mean, not a weakness, but a problem, I guess you could say, especially in a fight like this, is Alexa Grasso just does not have very much power. She's kind of similar to Wu Yanan in a little bit of a way, I think. Right, Ghost? I think we can agree on this, where pretty buttery smooth in the combinations in the striking department. But it just packs the power of a balloon. I don't know. or like I don't, what's the phrase again? You tell me. The one that got Whaley upset at you or whatever. That's kind of, I think, Alexa Grasso territory, except obviously a lot better than Wu Yanan. No offense to Wu, it's just how it is. So for her, I think she's got to try and not be afraid to an extent, because Valentina, of course, just by herself has the aura of presenting fear and whatnot, and she can do everything, but we've obviously seen some exploitations to her in that last fight in particular. Of course, Tyler Santos, a bit of a different body and style, with her Muay Thai compared to Grasso. So I just don't know if it's going to translate the same, or if Grasso can maybe exploit any blueprint there. But I don't know. Very curious to see how Valentina comes back to it, what kind of her approach. She probably won't change anything, really. She still won. She felt she won, all that stuff. But I don't know. I just think the striking, primarily, the striking styles clash here is how Grasso is going to approach with her boxing. Because if she tries to go at Grasso like if Grasso tries to go at Valentina like she does everybody else for the most part, it's not, I don't think, going to go very well for her, because Valentina will just counter away, left hook, get it circling out, as she comes in, all that kind of stuff. Of course, probably some good kicks in there too from Valentina, but yeah. Jimmy says Valentina time, so no comments from Ghost, probably. Citro says, again, using Brandon Olivas take as my own. Valentina is very flawed despite being a great fighter. Well, I don't know about that. She's low output and too comfortable on her back, so offensive wrestling is the path to victory. I mean, she's low output. The low output, though, is not a flaw. I mean, that is not a flaw whatsoever. She's obviously very conservative, but she just makes everything count as much as she can. And then too comfortable on her back. I mean, there have been some situations, obviously, where maybe the Maya fight, you could definitely say that, even though I think Maya just kind of had her stuck there. Against Juliana Pena, that obviously paid off. She whipped out an armbar. And then against Santos, I think Santos kind of had her back more than she was on her back, but offensive wrestling is the path to victory. I mean, it certainly helps. You got to use it. You have to use it. That's for sure. Ghost says, I think smoother than Wu Yanan in terms of boxing, but yes, it's like when she connects, it's like smothering butter on the opponent's faces. There you go. That's what I was getting at. Ghost says, but Val's entire game plan is to stand so far from her opponent that to hit her, then move back. Yes, what Grasso needs to do is back Val to the fence. Exactly. She's got to pin her into kind of a corner and trap her like a caged animal a little bit, make her uncomfortable in there, which not always the easiest to do against Valentina. Of course, she's distance management queen. Again, counter queen. Much, much easier said than done. That's why Alexa has to try to give these different looks here with maybe some takedown, at least fakes it, and then back her into the wall as best as she can, because those are clearly the moments we've seen, people have good success against Valentina. Cinto says, and him and Santino DeFranco said Valentina had problems mid-fight. She has notable habits, but hard to exploit. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Yeah, and I mean, that's what makes the last Santos fight even more interesting, was because of the fact that I don't know if we'd really say that Valentina adjusted to losing, right? To fixing things when she was losing, because Santos fucked her eye up. She had the broken orbital and she couldn't see, and that's clearly what affected things. So, yeah. So, Go says, because as good as Valentina is, she cannot pull back when her back is to the fence. All right. Yeah, I mean, that has been one point. He says adapting mid-fight is what I meant to say. Yeah. Like, I mean, she's never really had to, is the thing, right? Like, for the most part. Maybe you could say the Nunes rematch. Would have to go back and rewatch that one, even though we know it wasn't the most exciting of fights, but probably a good study to do there. But yeah, I mean, she really never has to do much adapting, like, let's be honest. That's a thing she just does not ever need to do. So I'm very compelled by this. I think Alexa has a much better chance than people are giving her credit for, especially the Tapology voters. And I mean, predicting finishes, I don't know about that, especially a knockout. I think if Alexa gets finished, it would be by a submission, probably. Unless it's a ground and pound, kind of similar to against Andrade, where she's in a very bad position. But I think decision in either direction is probably pretty safe here. Could you imagine if Alexa submitted her, though? My God, that'd be nuts. And I mean, these odds are, they're lower than maybe usual, than they usually are. So we will see. But I'm pretty compelled by it. I have really liked Alexa Grasso at flyweight, and I mean, we've seen so many flashes of brilliance from her in her career. I mean, I always highlight that Carolina fight, which again, you can attribute to Carolina again a little bit, but the Alexa Grasso in that fight, I will say it every time, Alexa Grasso against Carolina Kowalkiewicz, go back and watch that fight. That was a world champion. That was how sensational Alexa Grasso looked in that fight. She's not going to look that way in this one, just because stylistically it's not going to work out, but if she can channel a little bit of that, it's gonna be a really fun time. So Goat says it's the same way with any good mover like Izzy. They cannot phase through walls when pulling back from strikes. Yeah, very true. Rio says, can the fence be used as a weapon? Like Ghost has talked about every breakdown, but can Grasso pressure Valentina to the fence? We don't know. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, she did a decent job of that against Viviani in some moments. Of course, different fighters there, but I think she has that capability. It's just a matter of, again, pulling it off. So we shall see, but that is UFC 285, you guys. Very, very intriguing night of action in more ways than one. I mean, there is a lot going on this week. Big fight week. So yeah, we will leave it off there. All right, you guys, don't forget, visit MMAnia.com for all your MMA needs. And don't forget to follow, like, share, and subscribe if you like what you're seeing on each and every platform that you possibly use. You hit that notification bell too, so you don't miss a gosh darn thing here on YouTube when we are live for the show. Typically, the main time of every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time, as we're here today. Good old time. Appreciate you guys so much. I am at Drake on Twitter and Instagram. And to get the shameless pluggy plugs out of the way, what do we got coming for you? Here, let me look at YouTube so I make sure I mention everything. Well, yesterday, Broughton Horizon episode 24 dropped, so go check that one out. Good, fun stuff there. Good personality on display. We had a Showpatch Busami, lightweight prospect on the rise, has had some vicious knockouts in his first two Rising fights, beating on Rising 41 as well, of course. Tofik Mustaev, the former Grand Prix champ, now competing Bellator next week as he takes on Alexander Shawi in the lightweight Grand Prix for Bellator. Going to be fun stuff. And then Rusei Ashizawa, the very outspoken kickboxer who is headlining Rising 41 on April 1st against Koji. Bad blood there. He was not shy to say some things. Say some things about Koji. So check that out, you guys. Broughton Horizon. Good stuff here on the channel, as always. And then, let's see, what else we got in the works? Well, the only thing in the chamber right now coming down the pipeline as we have some interviews lined up. Sexyama spoke to Yoshihiro Akiyama yesterday, so that will be coming to you most likely next week dropping. Good stuff. He was just on Physical 100 on Netflix. Made it pretty far. Didn't win the show. Spoiler alert. Sorry, but he did very well. We talked all about that. Talked about when he will be returning to One Championship and all that good stuff. So I was in the presence of the sexy. Believe it, you guys. So good old time. And then, I will be in San Jose next week actually for Bellator 292. So look forward to that. It's going to be a good time. And I will be flying like right at the time of the show, you guys. So I don't know if we will have to. I don't want to skip next week, but I don't think it's going to be on Tuesday. We might have to do a Monday show next week. Still figuring it out. Stay glued to YouTube page and my feed for all the updates and whatnot. But probably won't be a Tuesday show next week since it'll be right in the middle of the flights. And I won't have time to do it earlier for reasons of getting to the airport. So yeah, we'll figure it out. But either way, appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe and stay sane. You guys enjoy the weekend of action. And I will see you